When you think of a gunslinger, you picture men with six-shooters at their hips. But hidden in the shadows of the Wild West were women who could match that speed, and sometimes even beat it. These weren't the wives or saloon girls from Hollywood myths. They were outlaws, sharpshooters, and fearless performers who carved their own legends with cold steel and hot lead. Some of these women were fast enough to outdraw the very men we call legends today, men like Wyatt Earp and Wild Bill Hickok. Today, we're counting down the top 8 fastest female gunslingers of the Wild West. By the time you see number 1, you'll realize the fastest gunslinger on the frontier may not have been a man at all. If you love uncovering the real stories of the Old West, make sure you subscribe, because this is where the myths end and the truth begins. Number 8, Pearl Hart, the stagecoach bandit. Pearl Hart is remembered today as one of the very few women to commit an armed stagecoach robbery in the Old West. On May 30th, 1899, near Globe, Arizona, she and an accomplice named Joe Boot stopped a stagecoach bound for Florence. Hart, carrying a revolver, ordered the passengers to hand over their valuables, while Boot held the driver at gunpoint. In total, they collected only a small amount of cash, around $431, along with a revolver and some personal items. After the robbery, Pearl even handed a little money back to each passenger so they could buy food once they reached town. The crime shocked Arizona Territory newspapers, not because of the theft itself, but because a woman had carried it out. The Phoenix Daily Herald called her a woman of desperate character and reported that she displayed perfect coolness while holding the gun. Pearl and Boot were captured just days later by the Pinal County Sheriff. While Boot received a long prison sentence, Hart was acquitted of the robbery at her first trial, partly because the jury was reluctant to convict a woman. When retried for a related offense, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison but was pardoned after serving just 2. Pearl Hart never committed another known robbery, but the stagecoach holdup secured her place in Western history. She was not the fastest shot, but as one of the only documented female stagecoach robbers, she remains one of the boldest. But while Pearl Hart's story made headlines for its shock value, the next woman earned her reputation in the arena of skill. Firing from horseback with speed and precision, few men could match. Number 7, Belle Starr, the Bandit Queen. Belle Starr, born Myra Maybelle Shirley in 1848, became one of the most notorious women associated with outlaws in the post-Civil War frontier. While not a proven fast-draw gunfighter in the Hollywood sense, her reputation with pistols earned her the title the Bandit Queen. After the Civil War, Belle married Jim Reed, an outlaw connected to Jesse James and the Younger Gang. Following his death, she lived among other criminals in Indian Territory, often linked with horse thieves and bootleggers. She became especially known for carrying 2 Colt .45 revolvers strapped to her belt and for dressing in black velvet riding habits, which added to her intimidating image. Contemporary accounts show that Belle frequently faced arrest. In 1883, she and her second husband, Sam Starr, were convicted of horse theft and sentenced to prison. Newspapers described her as armed at all times and noted her readiness to use a pistol to defend herself or intimidate rivals. Although there is little evidence she ever fought in formal duels or quick-draw contests, her association with armed gangs and her public persona as a pistol-carrying woman made her famous across the frontier press. The Fort Smith elevator once described her as a woman of bad repute and ungovernable temper, ever ready with her pistol. Belle Starr was murdered in 1889 near her home in Indian Territory. She was ambushed on horseback and shot twice, once in the back and once in the shoulder, and died instantly. Her killer was never conclusively identified. Belle Starr's legend grew larger than her life, thanks to dime novels and sensational newspaper stories. While not the fastest shot in history, she embodied the armed, dangerous woman of the Wild West, a rarity that secured her a permanent place in frontier lore. But while Belle Starr's reputation came from her outlaw life, our next entry earned hers on the trail, where she delivered the mail through hostile country with a revolver always at her side. Number 6, Stagecoach Mary, the fearless mail carrier. Mary Fields, better known as Stagecoach Mary, was born enslaved in Tennessee around 1832 and gained her freedom after the Civil War. By the late 19th century, she became a legend in Montana for her toughness, independence, and skill with firearms. In 1895, at around 60 years old, Mary was contracted by the U.S. Postal Service to carry mail along a star route between Cascade and St. Peter's Mission. She drove a stagecoach and mule team through rugged terrain, often facing bad weather, bandits, and wild animals. Her reliability quickly earned her the nickname Stagecoach Mary. Contemporary accounts describe her as 6 feet tall, powerfully built, and known for smoking cigars and wearing men's clothing. More importantly, she carried firearms, usually a revolver and sometimes a rifle, and was reputed to be unafraid of using them to protect her cargo. The Great Falls Examiner in 1895 wrote that she braved weather, Indians, and outlaws with a revolver by her side, and the mail always delivered on time. Local oral histories also claimed she once fought off a pack of wolves that attacked her team, firing her gun until they scattered. Mary became a well-known figure in Montana towns, respected for her fearless personality and willingness to stand up to men who tried to cross her. While there is no record of her participating in formal shootouts, her reputation for toughness with a gun was enough to deter would-be troublemakers. Stagecoach Mary retired from mail carrying in 1903, but she remained a beloved figure in Cascade until her death in 1914. She was the first African-American woman to work as a star route mail carrier, and she left behind a legacy as one of the toughest, most dependable women of the frontier. But while Stagecoach Mary became famous for defending the mail, the next woman stunned audiences with speed and precision, shooting targets on horseback at a full gallop. Quick question: if you had to ride shotgun on a stagecoach, would you pick Mary Fields or Wyatt Earp to guard it? Let me know below. Number 5, Mamie Frances Halfley, the Galloping Gun. Mamie Frances Halfley was one of the best-known female performers in early Wild West shows, gaining fame in the early 1900s for her daring trick riding and sharpshooting displays. She wasn't an outlaw, but her skill with firearms on horseback made her one of the most remarkable women associated with guns on the American frontier. Mamie first appeared with Pawnee Bill's Wild West show and later toured with other circuses and rodeo acts. She became especially famous for her horseback shooting act, where she would ride at a gallop and fire her revolver or rifle at glass balls tossed into the air. Audiences marveled at her speed and accuracy, hitting multiple targets in seconds while controlling a horse. Halfley also became a pioneer of the Roman race, a stunt where she stood with one foot on the back of each of 2 running horses while shooting targets. Newspaper accounts praised her as one of the most fearless female equestrians of her time. While Mamie was primarily an entertainer, her feats were real demonstrations of marksmanship and split-second timing. She was part of a generation of women who proved that firearm skill wasn't limited to men and helped keep Wild West shows popular well into the 20th century. Mamie Frances Halfley continued performing until the 1930s and lived until 1950, leaving behind a long career as one of the few women remembered for combining riding skill with precision shooting. Her place on this list comes not from outlaw deeds, but from undeniable ability. Fast, accurate, and fearless in front of a crowd. But while Mamie Halfley thrilled audiences with her galloping gunfire, the next woman's legend came from her unshakable aim, even after losing 2 fingers to an accident. Number 4, May Lilly, the Lady Rifle Shot. Mary Emma May. Manning Lilly was one of the earliest women sharpshooters to gain national attention. Born in Philadelphia in 1869, she married Gordon William "Pawnee Bill" Lilly in 1886 and quickly became a star performer in his Pawnee Bill's Wild West show. Billed as the greatest lady horseback rifle shot of the world, May performed shooting exhibitions while riding at a gallop, hitting glass balls and other targets with remarkable speed. Unlike some female performers who were limited to trick acts, May's reputation was built on her ability to handle firearms with genuine precision under pressure. Her fame grew even more when, during a performance, she suffered a serious accident that cost her 2 fingers on her right hand. Instead of retiring, May adapted her technique and continued performing, proving her resilience and determination. Newspapers praised her as a symbol of Western womanhood, skilled with both rifle and revolver. Beyond the arena, May was an outspoken advocate for women learning to shoot, believing firearms gave women independence and self-protection. She encouraged female audiences to embrace marksmanship as a practical skill, not just a performance. May Lilly continued to tour with Wild West shows into the early 1900s, performing before large crowds in the United States and Europe. She remained closely involved with Pawnee Bill's enterprises until her death in 1936. While not an outlaw or gunslinger in the traditional sense, her fast, accurate shooting from horseback made her one of the most accomplished female marksmen of the frontier era, and one of the few who could genuinely rival the speed of her male contemporaries. But while May Lilly fought through injury to prove her skill, the next woman built her entire reputation on speed, and she wasn't afraid to challenge Annie Oakley herself. At this point in the list, who's impressed you the most so far? I've got my favorite, but I want to hear yours. Number 3, Lillian Smith, Annie Oakley's rival. Lillian Frances Smith was born in 1871 in California and rose to fame as a trick-shooting prodigy while still a teenager. At just 15 years old, she joined Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show in 1886, where she was introduced as a California girl sharpshooter. Smith's specialty was rapid-fire rifle shooting. She became known for hitting multiple glass balls in quick succession and for her speed at reloading and firing. Audiences were astonished by her ability to shatter target after target with almost no pause, making her one of the fastest performers on the circuit. From the beginning, she was cast as a direct rival to Annie Oakley, who had already become the star of Cody's show. Newspapers often compared the two, highlighting Smith's youth and brash personality against Oakley's precision and quiet confidence. In one interview, Smith openly declared she could outshoot Oakley, a boast that fueled press coverage and ticket sales. However, her reputation suffered during the 1887 tour in London, where Queen Victoria attended a special performance. Reports suggest Smith did poorly during her act, while Oakley impressed the royal audience. The contrast damaged Smith's image, and she soon left Buffalo Bill's troupe. Despite this setback, she continued to perform in other shows and competitions, retaining a reputation for speed and daring. She later performed under the stage name Princess Winona, presenting herself in a Native American persona common in Wild West shows of the time. Lillian Smith's career demonstrated that speed and showmanship could rival even the most accurate sharpshooters. While she never achieved Annie Oakley's enduring fame, her youth, confidence, and fast shooting made her one of the boldest women of the Wild West stage. But while Lillian Smith thrived on competition, our next entry became the most famous sharpshooter in the world, the woman whose name is still synonymous with speed and accuracy. Number 2, Annie Oakley, Little Sure Shot. Phoebe Ann Moses, known to the world as Annie Oakley, was born in 1860 in rural Ohio. She learned to shoot as a child to help feed her family, developing a skill that quickly set her apart. By her late teens, she was competing in shooting matches, and in 1881, she defeated traveling marksman Frank Butler in a contest. The two later married and became lifelong performing partners. In 1885, Oakley joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, where she became its most famous star. Nicknamed Little Sure Shot by Lakota leader Sitting Bull, Oakley dazzled crowds across the United States and Europe with her combination of speed and precision. Her feats were widely reported. She could split a playing card edge-on with a bullet, shoot a cigarette from her husband's lips, or hit multiple targets tossed into the air before they touched the ground. At exhibitions, Oakley often hit 25 out of 25 clay pigeons in rapid succession, sometimes reloading and firing again before the crowd had finished applauding. Unlike some show performers who relied mainly on spectacle, Oakley's skills were rooted in genuine marksmanship. She trained rigorously, using both rifles and shotguns, and her accuracy remained consistent throughout her long career. She also promoted shooting for women, believing it offered independence and self-reliance. Oakley performed internationally, including in front of Queen Victoria, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and other European royalty. In Germany, she famously shot the ashes off a cigarette held by the Kaiser himself, a stunt that became one of her most retold exploits. She continued performing until a 1901 train accident left her injured, after which she focused more on exhibitions and teaching. She remained a household name until her death in 1926. Annie Oakley's combination of rapid shooting and pinpoint accuracy made her the most celebrated female marksman of her time. While others challenged her, none matched her enduring fame or her record of consistent fast marksmanship. But while Annie Oakley built her legend on stage, our final entry lived and fought on the frontier itself, a woman whose name became inseparable from the Wild West. Number 1. Calamity Jane, the deadly frontierswoman. Martha Jane Canary, better known as Calamity Jane, was born in 1852 in Missouri and became one of the most colorful figures of the frontier. Unlike Annie Oakley or Lillian Smith, Jane was not a stage sharpshooter. Her reputation came from her rough life on the plains, her skill with firearms, and her larger-than-life character. Jane worked as a scout for the U.S. Army in the 1870s during campaigns in the Black Hills. Accounts from fellow scouts and soldiers describe her as an excellent horse rider and capable with both rifle and revolver. She was often armed and known for her willingness to fight. Her nickname, Calamity Jane, reportedly came from her claim that calamity befell any man who crossed her. While this origin story is debated, it reflects the reputation she carried on the frontier. Newspapers in Deadwood frequently mentioned her in connection with brawls, drinking, and armed encounters. Calamity Jane was also closely associated with Wild Bill Hickok. While dime novels and later films often exaggerated a romance between them, the two were certainly friends. And Jane was in Deadwood at the time of Hickok's famous death in 1876. Though many of the tales about Jane were embellished, often by Jane herself in newspaper interviews or performances, it is clear she could handle a gun and was respected and sometimes feared for it. Unlike the polished accuracy of Annie Oakley, Jane's legend came from survival, defending wagon trains, riding as a scout, and living a rough frontier life with firearms always close at hand. She died in 1903 in Terry, South Dakota, at the age of 51, and was buried next to Wild Bill Hickok in Deadwood. Calamity Jane remains one of the most enduring female figures of the Wild West, not for staged performances, but for living the armed, dangerous life of a frontier woman. Her blend of truth and legend secures her the #1 spot on this list. From outlaw stagecoach robbers to the fastest sharpshooters the world had ever seen, these women proved the gunfight wasn't just a man's game. But what do you think? Could one of them have truly outdrawn the fastest men of the West? From Pearl Hart's daring stagecoach robbery to Annie Oakley's unmatched precision, and from Belle Starr's outlaw life to Calamity Jane's raw frontier grit, these 8 women proved that the story of the Wild West was never just about men. Some carved their names through crime, others through performance, and some simply by surviving a world that demanded toughness at every turn. Each one left behind a record that history tried to bury, but their speed, their courage, and their marksmanship still echo more than a century later. So now it's your turn. Do you think any of these women could have outdrawn the most famous male gunfighters of the West? Or does speed mean something different when survival, showmanship, and legend all collide? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed uncovering these hidden stories, don't forget to subscribe and join me on the next ride into the true history of the frontier, where the myths end and the real Wild West begins.